Welcome to another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast. My name's David Gilliland. I'm one of your hosts. We have Nick Seavert with us from JengaFX, and we're just delighted to have you on the call today, Nick. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
And Nick, you're calling out of Austin. I imagine, let's see, you've got a team, though, that's spread all over, right? Where's your team?
They are in many different countries. So whether it's Czech Republic, United Kingdom, Germany, Australia, even here in the U.S., things like that, we have 25 employees that are completely remote.
That has its own challenges as you're going, and some advantages too. Um, Nick, tell us just a little bit about Jenga FX. How did you get started in the first place? What exactly do you do? What's the magic you guys bring to the world?
Yeah, so JengaFX is a real-time visual effects software company, and in layman's terms, we blow stuff up digitally. And so, if a game studio or a film studio needs explosions, fires, smoke, clouds, and other volumetric phenomenon like that, our software will simulate all of that, and then we're able to sell seats for those artists. And so, studios will pay us on a per seat basis for the software, and that's about it. And I got into this because I was a visual effects artist for games professionally, and I figured out that the tools that I was using really sucked, and I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so I said, this is going to be my business. And so I started it in 2016, and here we are.
Nice. I love that. That's like the perfect little scenario over and over again. It's entrepreneurs sees a need and says, "Why aren't we doing this? I'm gonna go fix this and get out there and make it happen." Uh, I mean, you've been going for a while now. You've grown quite a bit. What kinds of things since you passed the seven figure? I mean, you did that a little bit ago. You've been growing past that seven figure space, or you're well into it now, I should say. You passed the $1 million mark.
Yep.
What are the nuggets, the insights, little keys that really help you succeed and double from that point and double again almost, right?
Yeah, I think it's really just honestly persistence. Waking up every single day and saying, I still have it. I can still push forward and things like that, because almost every other day I wake up and say, I can't do this anymore. you know? And so I think
That's
that's probably my biggest nugget. And then my next nugget is treating your team well. We pay our team extremely well, and starting salary for anyone is 80,000, and after 2 years they get 100. And so that's it includes customer service. And so, because we want everyone to have a level playing field on their salaries, and I mean, it has just paid dividends over and over and over again for us to do that for our team. And so we really treat them like family. So
So even your overseas teams, which many say you use overseas to find a cheaper solution, that's not why you used overseas.
now we use overseas because we can't find that quality of talent here in the U.S.
I like that. And talk to me about the dividends it's paid, because a lot of us are afraid, right? We take the mentality of you pay what you have to, because I'm scrimping, I'm scrimping. I'm saving money, trying to figure out some way to keep investing in the next thing. But you saw your investment as your people from early on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of got the idea from P.T. Barnum's old book from the 1800s. I believe it's called The Art of Money Getting, and he talked about your most important business asset being the tools that you use, and in my case, that's people, right? And people, they have a certain level of work capital that they're able to put out. And what we want to do is we want to give them the best environment possible to be able to have good output. And so and part of that is giving really great salaries, but another part of that is treating them like their family. um, I think some of the benefits for all of that, is, people say, if you have employees, they can't be your friends because one day I might have to fire them. And I completely disagree with that because we're able to run circles around our competitors because I stick up for my team in ways that other companies wouldn't stick up for my team. Right? We're hiring from our competitors and kind of poaching our competitors at this point for some of their employees. And once we get them, our employees are, it's highly likely that they're not going to leave. In the 8 years I've been in business so far, I've only had one person leave.
Wow, that's fantastic. How many of us, though, in our hiring early on, we just didn't make some good hires. We thought we did, but we just weren't good at it. How did you manage that?
I think it's just really, you know, we don't put out much job applications and it's more friend to friend referrals. We'll hire someone, and I found everybody in our company pretty much on Discord, right? Where I'll join a Discord server and I'll kind of see what their work was, and then from there it's blossomed to, hey, I've got this friend who works here. What if we, talk about hiring them or whatever. And with there has been one instance where I've had to actually fire someone, but that was just a cold outreach on their part, and I guess I didn't vet very well, or things like that. But so I've made mistakes on hiring as well, but um, yeah, I think that's probably about it. It's mostly just internal referrals.
You matched two things, right? You had the internal referrals when they're like real friends, real connections. You're kind of getting a culture fit already in many ways. That
Exactly.
and they're not trying to get someone a job that they feel sorry for. They're saying this is someone I love working with, right? So you're getting that. And then that you were out on the Discord boards. Now, for those not aware of, I mean, we're talking about work boards. We're talking about people who creating stuff, and you're seeing their work. You're seeing skills out there, and these are people sharing with each other and seeing it. So you're getting both a culture fit around the relationship and the people who already know them and have vetted them on that side, and then and a job fit in those Discord boards. Is that fair?
Yeah, exactly. And the great thing about Discord is, I can go on that server, search their name, and look through every post they've ever made publicly. And if they're saying a bunch of stuff that I wouldn't want to be associated with, then I don't even have to reach out. And so they vet themselves, because I'm on there and I'm like, hey, this person has some pretty good stuff, and I can see how they react, with their community that they're a part of. And then if I'm like, okay, like there's nothing here that's, too bad, then we can, cold message them and, potentially bring them on. And that's how I found my co-founder is, at this point, he actually quit his PhD program. This was, I don't know, probably 6 years ago, to actually join me full time. And I found him just cold on Discord. He was doing something cool, and I'd messaged him and he said, hey, that sounds kind of like a scam. I said, no, just believe me, like this is going to be big. And now he's extremely happy at this point that he had joined me, those years ago. But and so it was all thanks to Discord.
That's really neat. um, Yeah, it wasn't one of those post and pray kind of things where people throw something up on. Well, I just lost the name of the big hiring platform, Indeed, right? Like, or the old Monster, right? Not one of these post and pray things. You're doing your homework. You're seeing who's out there, getting to know the players, and you're reaching out to those who fit. Uh, that's great little nugget right there. I also love the that first one you said about persistence. Are you okay if I dig in just a little bit behind that?
Yeah,
Because you were real enough with us that every other day it doesn't feel like that. How do you break through that? Those moments of like, ugh, I don't know. I don't know about this anymore.
I think the thing is I feel a lot of conviction that I'm the person who has to change the industry that we serve, because I feel like no one else cares about software as much as we do. I feel like no one cares about the artists as much as we do who use our tools. So, our end user. And I also feel that, almost no one cares about like the actual workers, on our end for software development as much as we do. And if I'm not the one who does it, then who? Right. So if not me, then who? And so that's really just what, keeps me going. And I mean, the hard part is, I'm a first time founder, in this case. And, I've learned a lot, and, there's just so many things that are hard or challenging or whatever, whether it's like these new IRS rulings about, not being able to expense software employees, or at least, not 100%. You can only do like 6% a year or something. And so it's just like, massive tax bills and restructuring problems and, just being bootstrapped and, never taking on investor money and, all this kind of stuff. There's just challenges that pile up and pile up and pile up. And like I feel like I'm outside of my depth every day. But then I go to sleep and I tell myself, before I go to bed, I'm like, hey, you know, I, I want you to think on this while you're asleep and like come up with an answer tomorrow. And typically I do, and then I'll say, okay, like I've got one more try in me to like keep going. And so, I think it's really important to do that because I mean, there were so many times that like I wanted to quit. And this is like even like pre-revenue. I'm just like, man, I just don't think I'm cut out for this. Like, I just don't think this is it, or, I don't think anybody's going to buy my product, or no one is buying it. What do I do? And I just gave it another month, and I just kept giving it another month, and then I'm like, this is great. And then once we were hitting stride, and we hit like our first $10,000 day, I was like freaking out. I'm like, man, I can finally afford a $15 meal at the store, or at a restaurant. It was brutal times, but I really believe that the net always appears for you if you take the leap. And so I just have to keep taking the leap every day. And um, yeah, I think that's probably about it. But it's just about persistence for me, and grit. Just being hardcore about it and just being like, hey, like this is really hard. And I think the thing is with me, like I have shiny object syndrome constantly on like all these little projects and whatever. And like the initial like wow factor that I had when I initially started the business versus now has long worn off, right? And like the industry is just tough. There have been 30,000 layoffs in our industry this year, right? And our revenue is through the roof. Like we're hitting record revenue month after month at this point, you know, but there's a great toll that the industry as a whole feels, and like it has repercussions on us mentally for that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a lot to handle, but you know, if not me, then who?
That's the piece that I want to focus on, that question, because the if not me then who was centered around a purpose. You had something that's outside of just make a buck, because Nick can make a buck all over the place. There was a difference you wanted to make, and there was a reason you wanted to make that difference, and you saw that the artist could be better served, the employees could be better served, the software itself could be better, more powerful to serve these needs, and nobody was caring enough about it. And you just felt that pull towards this. I'm going to serve this. I'm going to find a way, and you found a way. um, I appreciate that. That's a similar thing for me, is when those down days come. For me, it's remembering, wait, I'm here to realize potential, and that's limitless. Now get out there and do some work, David. Right? So get up. Time to engage in the work again. Time to tap into that grit. Thanks, Nick. What a
Yeah,
great insight.
absolutely.
I mean, now you're here, right? I mean, you're growing well. You've passed the first stage in the seven figure space, which is the 1 to 3 million space. Really is building that team and the right people and processes to ensure we can deliver on this. Building a culture, all right, that you can be proud of. That the team is starting to get the vision of what you care about, and they care about it now with you. That's that key at that stage. And now you're at another stage and you're starting to run into more stuff. What are you dealing with now? How can we help?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing that I'm dealing with that I never really had problems with in the past, but now I am because, I like to think big and then think bigger than that. And so I'm aiming for the bigger than that. And I'm at the point in my business now where almost everything is delegated. Right? There's days where if I don't want to, I don't have to work. Right? My inbox like overflows at that point, and so it's not necessarily something I can do all the time, but almost everything is delegated. And at this point, my dream is to continue, running with like the core, product management, customer experience, interacting with our enterprise clients, on-site training and those sorts of things. However, there's a lot of other CEO stuff, say whether it's like legal, financial, things like that, that I'm not really able to delegate at this point. Those are things that they don't have to happen every day, but when they do come up, they stress me out like to no end. Like, trying to come up with like our restructuring documentation and all this other stuff, and like what new equity things will look like. And so I think my big thing is that I need help with is, I have like the future clarity. I know exactly where we're going to be in 5 years, the 10-year, 20-year, whatever plan, even next year. I know what we're going to do. But it's whenever I wake up in the morning and go, oh shit, I have to do something today. That's where I have a problem. And, for 8 years, I've been going on the seat of my pants of like, what do I do? And I just like, you put quarters into the gumball machine and eventually a gold one's going to come out. And so I just go and go and go and go. However, that's not an effective use of my time anymore. And now that I'm trying to add structure to my life, I'm becoming more and more um, frantic, I guess, to get things done. And I struggle getting things done. And so I have a lack of today's clarity, not necessarily future clarity.
Well, I, I appreciate first of all the vulnerability in sharing that and looking at what would happen. How does this play out 6 months from now if you don't get the today clarity the way you're feeling like you need it? What are you foreseeing? What's the ramification?
I think probably more delays on the things that have already been delayed for the past 6 months that were supposed to come out 6 months ago. Right? It's just, I, yeah, my lack of clarity, results in, less drive from the team in some instances, or us, pushing a thing back two, three, four times. And, me kind of failing as a leader on, giving the team the clarity that they need, within, say, the next month. And then some days I wake up and they ask me, and I just say, I don't know. Right. And so that's not a very good thing. I think it's okay for a leader to say that from time to time. I'm just human. But at the same time, like, then our people are like, okay, well, Nick doesn't know. So, eh,
So let's just keep doing what we're doing, and the new thing doesn't happen, or we get closer to going off that cliff that we didn't want to go off of, or whatever it is, right?
exactly.
Um, yeah, I find that we get to this point where we start maxing out in some areas, and it may be that some of those day to day details that of the long term goals that it needs to not be on Nick's shoulders. How do we begin to hand some of the day to day of the long term future building to the team to carry with us so that it doesn't feel so burdensome? Are you feeling some of that where you're like, yeah, all the long term stuff I'm building, they're all running the day to day operations?
I think with a lot of things, I was able to delegate almost everything about software development on that side. We have three software products that we're working on right now, which was a big change, just shifting from one. And, the vast majority of that is handled. And like I've had a great experience being able to delegate all that stuff. It's just, there's just some remaining things, whether it's, say, running payroll, or tax stuff, which, I mean, we have CPAs and an accounting firm and tax
But
lawyers
you
and
still
things like
have your
that. But
part.
yeah, but I still have like my part to do. And like, I think that those are the things, like, they suck the energy right out of me. And I just do not want to do them anymore because I'm tired of it. But I don't know how to delegate it, or what type of person that kind of hire is who just does all that, which we have an operations guy, but he's more of like developer operations, but he also handles some biz ops. And I want to try and continue training him to get into this role to take a lot of the rest of this stuff from me. But, I just, he's already got a super full plate dealing with everything software. And so it's like, well, do I need another hire that's just purely biz ops, you know.
And let's sit in that, because this is, if we don't get this off your plate, you have more of the days of ugh, and
Exactly.
less of, right? Because there is nothing awe-inspiring about running my payroll. I'm glad that the team's paid, but it didn't. I wasn't the only person. If not me, then who? Well, there's a lot of good answers for that for all of these other tasks. So let's look at two areas. One is tasks, tasks that belong to the CEO just because of the size of the business today and don't quite fit for everybody else yet. And then let's talk about strategic tasks that need to be done today to make the progress on the key things that we planned to launch 6 months ago and still haven't. Right. So it's on those two sides. One of the big things I see at this phase or stage of business is that the business owner has just about hit their capacity for carrying it on their backs, right? And what's funny is you'll hit that over and over again at every new stage. It's just because new stuff is on you, right? You've taken on new work, but you have to keep letting go of it. So let's, on the daily tasks, what are the results we really need in running the operations of the business, not the software generation? We're going to call it the back office. What are the results we need on running the back office of the business? What comes to mind?
Yeah. So I think, initial thoughts or, keeping, say, our legal stuff on track is probably a big one, right? That's been a multi-year project, unfortunately, just due to circumstance. So that's one of them. Another one would be, moving a lot of our payroll over to like a PEO firm so that I don't have to do it. And they just withdraw the ACH and like I don't have to spend 6 hours, you know, once a
That's their
month
job.
doing this
They
thing.
go over all of it, and they take care of setting us up in every country or in any place, right? Wherever we are, that's their job because it's a co-employment thing.
Exactly.
Terrific. There's still someone who's got to manage those PEOs or do whatever. So if you've gotten to the point that, one is to say we just outsource fully and we say, no, I'm going to have on my advisory board my legal help. So they're deeply connected into what we're doing, right? And they know, and they're paid, and they have interest in it, and they have that insight, and they're in the regular meetings, and they know your job is to make sure that any patent we have is secured and protected, defended, and everyone else stays off our back. Right? Give me legal advice, set our stuff up, fill out the paperwork, ensure the contracts are solid. That's your job. I don't deal with it. And if you're at that stage, great. And you start looking at that on the payroll. You're thinking about that. Now, sometimes I think of my back office. I I kind of want them to own, help me know I'm not running out of cash. So that's collections on time and that's paid out only when it needs to be. Right? Help me know I'm not running out of cash and you're giving me forecasts where we're at. And here's all my accounting side of things. You're the one watching the payroll. You know when it's supposed to hit. You ensure that everything's put in correctly. That's you. Let's ensure we have the cash to fund our business and keep our promises. And then on this legal side, that we retain and we don't lose any unnecessarily. Right? So can I give that to somebody to where they can then own it? And what would that do with my free time? What could I create? What
Yeah.
could I build? Right? And if what I can create and build is more than 150,000 value in the year, then I can get a pretty good person.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely think that I can build, far more value than 150,000. And, luckily, one of my bigger achievements of the past year was bringing on a biz dev person to just hammer the phones and, call up clients and source us more money basically. And I mean, that has paid tremendous dividends in our revenue. And now I just need to do that for like the back office tasks, it seems like.
That's right.
And
Let's take care of those and quickly, not because that drives our business, but because that drags our business, right? That's what it is. It's we got to get the drag off and let that flow cleanly. Um, one little piece I would throw in there when you look at your back office and whoever it is that starts doing those things, be extra sure that the cultural fit is what you want and they're fully aligned with your vision of how you treat people, because that role can put enough friction in with your team, kind of leave a sour taste, or it can really amplify it and be like, oh wow, I've never seen legal or HR or payroll treat us the way Nick has treated us, and like this is wow, this is different, right? To keep that same level of delight that you have with your team right now. So, so that's a thought.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and it's enough of a thought to say, why don't we act on that this month, right? But you're not going to find them on the distro board.
Yeah, absolutely.
so,
Okay.
so, but you may be able to still use the friend network. Um, but if not, here's another way that we found is helpful if we have to do an Indeed fashion or some other way of finding our talent, is to get really tight around who we are, what it is that we're serving, that impact and difference we want to make, and the values of how we make decisions, just super clear. And I don't care if it takes an entire website, our web page, you have to scroll down, 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 and really read and understand. You're like, yeah, this really describes us well. If that's not really clear, so that you could then advertise that out basically to people of, if you're like this is the right place, and if you're not, please go away. If you can't get that, you'll find you have a lot more failure in that hire, because that hire is one of the where you're like, I don't know these kinds of people as well. I'm not as dialed in there, and you'll want to just see that someone's really excited about the kind of impact, the change you can make for the employees, for the creatives, right? How much that matters, um, the belief there that you have, on driving the performance, and how much that matters to really change the industry. Whatever, you got to get people who care as much as you do. If you can't find one, keep looking. Right? Use outsourced ones until you find one.
Yeah, for sure. And luckily, I think I probably have maybe 45% of it outsourced at this point, but I need the other, what is that, 65 or 55%? Yeah,
55% still.
55%. And continue, maybe reach out to that contact and be like, hey, you guys are helping me with the 45, do you know someone for the 65? Because then they trust each other and I need that from them. And so,
I love that. I love that. It's a great direction. Look, let's switch really fast over to the strategic stuff. Let me ask you some questions, because you already hinted, like these are projects that were supposed to be going, which means there was revenue, there were making it easier for everyone to do what they were doing, customer delight, all sorts of stuff being held off. Some of the impact you want to have, because the day to day to execute against the long term vision sometimes gets off the mark. When you've got a clear vision, would you say you've got your team, were they part of creating the clear vision, or were they just kind of told the clear vision? What's that look like?
I think it's probably 50-50, right? I have my ramblings to the team and things like that, and I think they kind of follow. And then there's the other days where we'll have a full all hands meeting, and sometimes we'll do like collaborative stuff, where we're on like a Miro board or something like that, doing real time collaboration and just typing out all of our ideas. No idea is a stupid idea. Let's just get stuff out, and then over the next few days, I'll wrangle all those ideas and then pitch the team again and say, "Hey, what do you guys think of this?" And we typically, get the all green, approval or whatever from everyone. So I'd say it's kind of 50-50 on what we're aiming for. Some of our team at this point doesn't think we should grow anymore, but I want to double right in size. And so, but I think it's just a matter of them being scared, of what happens, do we lose our culture if we double in size and that kind of thing. And I have to be the pacifier at that point.
Well,
and say,
they're
hey, it's all
valid
right.
questions, right? I bet they've been a part of bigger companies and seen the soul sucked right out of those companies as growth has happened because the leaders hadn't shifted and learned how to build that culture in a ever expanding business. But it is possible. So let's take the examples when you went through on the Miro board and you guys are figuring it all out. You've rethought things through. Like, how about if we go do this? Um, from that point, and the team's like, yeah, let's go do this. What's the next step for you and your business? How do you take that idea and turn it into reality today, right now?
Yeah, typically, and I guess what we did, because this was rather recent, maybe 3 months ago, because we wanted to get back on track, right? And we kind of are on track at this point, at least for that. And so I think, what we did is we just kind of broke it down into like, Notion tasks, GitHub tasks, whatever it happened to be. And then, I feel like a lot of what could be delegated to others was delegated properly. Like our COO, he really, stepped up and helped on that part. But then the missing piece of the puzzle once again is me.
Yeah.
I'm the one who delegates to me. I'm the one who comes up with my tasks. And it's like, I can see, hey, I have to do, these 5 things, like here's like a really stupid example, right? We had to send paperwork to Japan because in Japan, those clients, they want actual physical signatures. They will not accept digital or DocuSign or anything. So, what that entails is I have to print it out, physically sign it, go to the post office, mail this thing, and argue with the post office people for 30 minutes because we can't read a Japanese address. And it's just like sucks everything out of you because it's so dumb. But like I have to do that every day with everything. And it's just like these weird little quirks of business, and it's like I can't necessarily delegate that out because our team's remote. It has to be my signature and I have to prove that it was my signature, right? And so like just things like that where I'm just like, man, you know, I could have been doing this other thing, but like I have to do this thing.
Instead, I'm a courier, right?
Exactly. And I guess the problem where it comes in is it's like, okay, well, like that is a very important thing because that's going to be, however many tens of thousands in revenue by sending this piece of paper, you know, and I'm going to put it off for like 2 weeks. So I did. And then the customer got mad. Hey, where's the documents? We have a production schedule, so on and so forth, right? And so it's just like all these problems, and yeah, and like that's what happens is like I get these tasks that I don't want to do, and so I put them off, and they're weighing on my brain, and I'm like, man, I have to do them soon. And then whenever I finally do it, like it is a relief, but it's also like doing those things that I don't want to do is so difficult to get me there, right? Because I'm just like, man, like I am completely fine. The business will live if I don't do this, so I just don't do it. A lot of the time you know? And it's like it's slacking in a way, but it's like premeditated.
So let's say, because you shared a direction I wasn't expecting, let's pretend for a second it was tasks and strategic things that actually had to be built, thought through, refigured, all this sort of stuff, and it's sitting on your plate. Um, there's an option instead of just who's in what role and who should take these things, like maybe your COO takes it, a CTO or someone else. Instead, you look and you say, for this strategic issue we're trying to tackle right now, this priority we're doing, let's build an ad hoc team who has a job to Gantt chart it out, full project management, get this done, different people owning different things. And it's not their day jobs. They all get to do this extra credit work. They get to be part of doing something really cool with Nick, who's been invested in them and now they're investing back. And so they could be from all over the world doing little bits and pieces. And what's fun is they've project managed, they've built it out, they've put who does what by when, and you have a regularly scheduled meeting that's 5 or 10 minutes long to say what's the progress on this every week or two. Um, that tends to drive my behavior to do some of the things I've said I need to do. I can get them done because I've got a meeting and there was a deadline for every one of those sub goals. and my name was on it, and the team's depending on me. They're watching it. So that meeting rhythm around an ad hoc team that only exists to get this one priority taken care of. And then they disband. But what just happened is you just built a bunch of leaders. They're all learning and a part of it. They're building the things they're going to run later. And the public accountability shames me into doing the things I wasn't going to do that I would have blown off. Okay, so there's something perhaps that's useful to you. We found the meeting rhythms to be a powerful thing to use on these ad hoc teams around priorities. It wasn't because it fit in their job description. It's because they got tapped to join kind of an elite group for a short period of time. So there's one. The other one is, Nick, I know you're doing all remote, but why don't you just get an executive assistant?
You were not the first person who's told me that.
So let me just tell you, April 16th. We celebrate April 16th. April 16th was the day we first moved and got an executive assistant. And then those things took a little bit of time to delegate them appropriately. But oh, the freedom, oh, the joy, and oh, the growth.
what
April
does
16th for us.
what does an executive assistant get you? What do you think? What was the freedom or unburden from it?
All right. So the follow ups on accounts receivables, we began to get help on that. So we're talking small business now. I'm not talking about executive assistant for a multi-million, like a $500 million business or something. Just these smaller businesses, all the little errands and tasks, all those things you just talked about, opening the mail, responding to things. We get things responded to I never even looked at. I have emails that I shouldn't have ever had to look at that sit there and annoy me that they're just taking care of. The rescheduling of stuff on my calendar, instantly done for me, moved around, right? It takes time. There's prioritizing that you've got to go through where they get used to you. Every day you're meeting for a while, right? Every day you're working through until they start to write emails for you that you're like, oh, that was better than I was going to do. All that follow up on the legal paperwork, they're doing it. All right. So a detail oriented, there's this old show called MASH. It was this Korean army show, whatever thing. And there was, I call Radar O'Reilly was the perfect executive assistant. Out the commander would step and he had things ready. He was barking orders, but Radar had it. Oh yeah, it's here, it's here, it's here, it's here. Oh, and by the way, this, and this are all taken care of. Go on to your meeting, right? Just done and ready. And building that, there are some really good people at that. There are some people who merit the kind of pay you like to put out there. So you'd be like, wow, they're that good. They're that good. And they act like a CEO right alongside you, except they're not sending the orders. They're just serving it all up. So if that's really that smaller stuff, you might look at that as an option.
Yeah, and it's kind of like I think for us, like probably the biggest issues we run into in our company is really death by a thousand cuts, right?
Mm.
It's not the big stuff that gets us. We handle that stuff really, really well. Whether it's like 30,000 layoffs in our industry, whatever, like we are set, like we're prepared, we know what to do. But it's like this, just the smallest stuff that comes up, and we're like, man, I overwatered my plant and now it died, like, like very, small things, but it's like I did that to 1,000 plants, and so I just need those 1,000 plants followed up with, and so I think that gives me something really actionable. I think um, probably the biggest thing I can take away from this, once again, is just probably get an executive assistant because, if I think, even deeper into it, it's more like I get exhausted trying to make my own schedule instead of just showing up and putting in work, right? Because that's where I work best. And it's like today, like the podcast here was on my calendar. I'm like, I'm just gonna show up and do it. Like it's already there. But like if I have to take the time to make all this stuff and say I'm going to go mail this thing, I just need to block out that says, hey, you're gonna spend 20 minutes to do this or whatever. And then like it's already there and there's no further thought.
That's right.
So
Well, the executive assistant would have just done that part for
yeah,
you.
exactly. Yes, they would just go go
That
mail
could
it
be
for
on
me.
his or her calendar. Okay. Well, Nick, Thank you so much. How do people get in touch with you if they're like, I want some cool effects in our stuff, or I want to keep learning with Nick? How do they keep in touch?
Yeah, so you could email me at nick@jengafx.com. So that's NICK at JANGAFX.com, or at Nick Seavert on Twitter or Instagram. And so,
Fantastic.
yep.
Nick, thanks again. That wraps up this episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast. We are so grateful to have had Nick on the call and sharing some of his insights with us. The If some of the ideas were powerful to you, share them, like them, do what you need to get this out to more seven figure business owners so our community can continue to help each other as we make a difference in the world, doing the things no one else was willing to do. Until next time.